God, I keep saying the human player. It's Sky. He is the human player. Blah. Okay, let me get my bearings here for a second. I wanted to discuss more about towers because this whole series is going to be basically how players can deal with towers against the human players. I want to go into a little bit more technical detail of these towers while there's a little bit of a skirmish going on here. Nothing much going on here. I will talk about the switch to Fiends by Fav here in a second, but back to the towers again. They do piercing damage, which does reduce damage to the Fiends. So Fiends are a really good choice for undead players to use versus towers. Fiends have a really good amount of hit points. You know, for a ranged piercing unit, I believe they have the most hit points out of any ranged piercing unit at tier 1. So that's really nice to work those in. The piercing damage helps to do focus fire damage, not necessarily doesn't do bonus damage versus the fortified armor of the towers, but it still helps to kind of do a lot of damage. Fiends have a lot of damage, just base damage to begin with, and because they're focus fire, because they're ranged, they do a good bit of damage to pick off individual towers. The main part being is their hit points there, and the fact that they take reduced from piercing from the guard towers, and they can be easily burrowed or coiled by the undead player's Death Knight. So that's something that's kind of interesting to know about how Fiends are used versus towers. Now, generally, when you're fighting against towers, you want to lead with either like a full hit point secondary hero, like your Lich or your Dreadlord or Cripplord or something like that, or even a Tavern hero, hopefully one that you can coil. Obviously, you wouldn't maybe want to lead with a Panda unless he has his Drunken Brawler to help him evade a little bit. But that's basically the reasoning for that is so you can coil and allow those towers to do it. Now, as a human player, the towers will auto-attack whatever comes in first, and the undead player is going to know that that's kind of how the mechanics work. So he's going to lead with his Lich here. You notice that Sky isn't manually focusing his towers here at this expansion here. Instead, he's allowed to auto-attack, and they're just auto-attacking the Lich. Death Knight just sitting there in the back, soaking up mana and hit points from statues, and as soon as the Lich gets low, bam, he's going to hit it with a coil, and that's exactly the way you want to handle that. That's the micro, that's exactly how to kind of deal with taking out towers individually here. So what's going on here at the moment? We do see Sky taking some Dragonhawks, and he's going to bring his Zeppelin along with his heroes to try to put that pressure on the expansion of Fav. And at the same time, Fav is going to make the move here, knowing with his Shade that's in Sky's main base, Sky is not in his base, and he can do a little bit of pressure. If you can all fight these towers without the human army present, then that's obviously the best thing to do here. So now we got a decision for Sky to make and for Fav to make. Fav's going to go in here. He does have the cloud upgrade on his Dragonhawk, so he's going to make these Spirit Towers and Nerubian Tower kind of useless as a defense at this expansion here by Fav. But in chain morphing his destroyers, Fav was able to get full mana on those destroyers and easily take out all those towers that were at Sky's main base, and even picking off that Paladin that just kind of blindly went into a bad situation there as it came out of the Altar of Kings there. So Sky says, okay, I have my Fiends here. I've taken out all the peasants. That's kind of the order that you want to do. You want to take out the towers first and take out any weak units or vulnerable units, i.e. this knight that's out here. Just came out, easily picked off. Nice for Fav there. Getting lots of experience, but the next target off is the castle itself. Now, this is going to do one of two things: either Sky to abandon his attack on Fav's expansion, or it's going to force Sky to say, "Okay, I'm going to lose my castle, but I'm going to take out that expansion spot here." So Paladin does get away at this time. Fav does decide to keep that pressure going on the castle, and he is going to end up taking that out. The switch off there is Sky was able to fortify his little push here at Fav's natural expansion by bringing some towers. He upgrades them. They now have the 3 armor upgrade, which is 8 armor and 800 hit points. And he was able to kind of push off Fav's expansion here. This is I believe this was kind of a major mistake by Sky in this game, which is going to end up costing him the game. Is he still has over 2,500 gold. He's got 2,650 gold in his mine at the moment, and he's not going to be able to get that. And to have to rebuild your castle, so you can, in case Sky was able or Fav was able to take off any tier 3 structures, is a big deal here. Importantly, it's that he's not going to be able to mine from this gold mine. It has 2,650 gold sitting there unusable in his. So immediately Fav says, okay, I was able to take off that castle, which is a huge big plus for me, and now Sky has made his way over to Fav's base immediately without even questioning repositioning, Fav TPs in, he gets his army together, and he brings everything back. He's able to a lot of webs off and kind of pick off a few of these Dragonhawk Riders and a Griffin. Sky does end up TPing out to try whatever air army he can get out of there. He, I think, ends up losing a good bit of that. He did end up losing a few of those Zeppelins. He was relying on those Zeppelins at his expansion for his food, and he just had to resummon a few of them. I'm talking about Fav, actually. Just kind of making a little bit of a shoutcasty bit of points there. All right, what do I want to go over now? 20-something minutes in there. I did have a few notes to talk about the 20-minute mark. Let me bring it in here. All right, I'm not one of those audio commentators that can actually have all my thoughts and ideas and things I want to, point out in my head. I actually have them all written down on paper here to try to focus on what I want to focus on different points in the audio here. So, actually, I think we're kind of caught up. I think I kind of got ahead of myself in a little bit. We are getting into the late part of this game, and it seems that it's pretty much over at this point. But Sky ends up making some good decision and takes out a lot of Fav's army in the coming fights here. So here's Fav dealing with towers, and Sky's actually manually controlling these towers to not attack his heroes whenever he can. He kind of switches their target to the destroyers, which is obviously the best target for the human player to pick off at this point. Fav does a very good job of webbing these units and then kind of repositioning his destroyers who are in the back here. Unfortunately, his Death Knights kind of on the opposite side of the screen there, on the eastern side of the screen, where his destroyers are on the west, and he ends up losing, I think, one or two of his destroyers there just to some Flying Machine and Dragonhawk Rider focus fire. He does end up getting a coil off, which is really nice, and he's just kind of repositioning. If you have to make a choice whether you want your Fiends to die or you want your destroyers to die, Fiends are easily constructed and not as expensive to make, so just kind of leave your Fiends up front if you have to. Coil them if you can, but if there's a lot of focus fire going off in your destroyers, definitely choose the destroyer over the Fiend. Again, Burrow's a really good idea to do that. And to deny your opponent, that was a really slick move there. If you just saw by Fav, Fav used his Lich here to get some mana from almost a full HP Fiend and to try to get mana from that. Unfortunately, he does end up losing his Lich. This is where I was telling you Sky kind of mounts a little bit of a comeback here by killing off that Lich, which is a huge thing, Fav did have the mana to coil hunt. Unfortunately, I believe it was on cooldown or something. He wasn't able to get it off in time, and a bolt and a Holy Light and some focus fire from the Archmage and some Griffin Riders were able to pick off that Lich. So that's kind of looking bad for him. Immediately he retreats. He had maybe, I think, 8 Fiends and like 2 or 3 Destroyers. He's now down to 2 Fiends, a Death Knight and a Dreadlord. So he actually ended up losing that fight. Again, fighting at the towers is a bit of a risk, but I believe he handled the towers right. It's just in dealing with that last fight, he kind of got hit in the pants there. So Fav does have an Acolyte sitting there at that expansion, which still has 5,600 gold in it, that he wants to be able to get gold from. However, those guard towers placed by Sky is going to say, okay, if you want to build that expansion, then you're going to have to deal with those towers, and then I'm going to know you're rebuilding that expansion at that particular moment. So kind of a good move.